What is up, Team Zero? It's the double agent you can trust, and you can call me Agent Zero. This is the most important video out of all of them. I'm excited for some of the other stuff like team relocation and the staff hiring, but this is what makes MyGM. I'm talking about team building, developing your team, and the trade system. It's been overhauled in NBA 2K16 MyGM, and I'm going to be diving into the specifics. Article again in the description. It's very long though, but if you want to stick it out, you can do that. And I'm going to be summarizing the main points here and giving my spin on what I think about him. Mostly, I'm really excited though. I think you could expect that from me. I'm going to be saying that throughout, but let's get straight into it. Team building is what they decided to kind of brand the term of really just doing your job as a GM and developing your team. This is interesting. The first bit of information they gave, and I tried to pick out the most important sentences because sometimes they were just blabbering on, but picks have less value if the upcoming draft is weak. You know, if there is a LeBron type player coming out of the draft, that #1 pick is going to have a lot more value than the potential #2 pick if there's no one that follows up that's as good as that guy. So if the draft class is weak, then those picks may not be worth much. That adds a whole new variable in the game. If you're holding a 2018 pick and well, I guess I don't know if you could auto-generate that much in the future, but you just never know how much that pick's really going to be worth. So it might be worth holding on to the picks, but then again, it might backfire if there's a weak draft class. So that's interesting right there. The graphic that you guys are looking at, and the one that I'm also looking at right now, is called Team Intel, and that's kind of what they, well, it's kind of straightforward in what it says, and that it gives you intel about other teams. And I'm going to be discussing the specifics about this because this is literally a huge part of MyGM, and this is something the most thing out of all things in this video, this is the thing I'm most looking forward to right now. It's a new screen. It tells you what every team is up to, and in sentences it summarizes that team's progress, that team's status, so if you want to make a trade with them, you could be better informed about what they're looking for. I'm tripping right now. There's too much words coming out of my mouth. My bad, y'all. Trading block. I've been saying MyGM needs a trading block for a very long time. If there's a player that Boston is looking, for example, Boston has Isaiah Thomas and Marcus Smart, there's rumors that one of those guys might move in real life. So in MyGM, it might make sense that one of those guys are on the trading block, or somebody on any team. I just chose Boston because they're the team that's up on the graphic right now. So if a team has a trading block, they're looking to move that player, chances of making a trade go higher if you attack and if you go for that player. They didn't say anything about you having a trading block. Like, I'm looking to trade this player, teams, call me up if you have any good offers. I didn't see anything about that. Hopefully I'm missing it. Hopefully that's in the game, or maybe they just didn't put it in there. We'll see how things go. But that's going to be a part of Team Intel. You can take a look at the team's targets, who the team is looking for, what kind of positions, and if you're very deep at the shooting guard position and you know that Minnesota isn't, for example, randomly just Minnesota, and you want to make a trade, this is stuff that you have to be well informed about. So when you're making a trade, if a team has too much of a position, they're not going to trade you just because this trade has value. If it doesn't fit their team, they're not going to make the trade. That's important to MyGM. I can't tell you how many times that I've made a dumb trade. Well, for me it was a good trade, but for the other team, I was like, why would they do that? Now the teams have gotten smarter, and that's what Team Intel is all about. Now the team's targets, the players they're looking for, change on a year-to-year basis or on a week-to-week basis. If they make a trade, pick up a free agent, their targets are going to change, but I think we could all agree that every team's going to have a target. Every team's going to be looking for a different way to improve. So if you can fit that and make a trade work with them, then that's all you. That's on Team Intel. An example they gave was, and this is something huge, and this is like how much smarter the teams got. It really shows. If LeBron's in the upcoming free agents, you're gonna see the value of expiring contracts for a lot of teams is gonna skyrocket. Because if you have an expiring contract on you, that means your chances of having more cap space, well, there's not chances, you're gonna have more cap space in the free agency, but the chances of you getting LeBron go up if you can offer him more money, right? So that's crazy that the teams actually set up for free agency, kind of like how I do. If they're trying to, open up their cap space for free agency, maybe they realize they're contenders and they want to contend for a championship, that means that if you have a player like Paul Pierce with the veterans minimum, or Jason Terry recently signed a veterans minimum, trading him over to that contender team, that's going to be of a lot of value to them, and they might be willing to give up something big, maybe a draft pick that they might end up something important. So you can trade strategically now, and the AI aren't as dumb as they were in previous years of MyGM, which is huge. Some players, I've been saying this for a while, because sometimes teams will call up like, yo, I want to trade you for Kobe, I want to trade you for LeBron, your best player, and for you, those players are untouchable. I'm not trading those players no matter what you give me, because they're a huge part of what I built my team around. And now you can make players untouchable, and for other teams, players will be untouchable. It doesn't make sense for the Golden State Warriors to trade Steph Curry. The only possibility that will happen is if they had feared that maybe he'd start getting re-injured again, because he had that part in his career where he kept getting injured. It doesn't make sense logically for some players to be traded from teams, and so there's going to be players, mainly superstars on teams, I'm assuming, that are going to be, you can't touch those players. Don't even bother trading, you're just wasting your time. Because if you build your whole team around a person, trading that person away maybe isn't a smooth move. You can quickly view the expiring contracts of other teams. There was a setting on last year's MyGM called upcoming free agents where you'd be able to check, but you never really knew because some players might accept a player option or not. So hopefully this differentiates. Like if it shows LeBron's going to be in the upcoming free agents, I want to know for sure before, you know, I just hope that maybe he declines an option, or that goes for any player. You want to be sure about things, and hopefully this can be a small improvement from the upcoming free agents tab that was in last year's MyGM. Teams do a better job of analyzing their roster before making a trade. I touched on this earlier. If they're deep at a position and you're trying to give them more people at that position, they're not going to trade you. It doesn't make sense. So if they're weak at a position, that's when you attack and you try and make the trade work. It's just the trading algorithm, I'm going to use that term here, has gone leaps and bounds beyond what it was last year. And hold on, spoiler alert, since we're looking at Team Intel graphic right now, it shows Isaiah Thomas at an 81 overall. Damn, they kind of leaked some overalls here. I'm sure they meant to, but that's interesting. He's at 81. So that Boston team is not looking as strong as my Boston MyGM is right now. That's what's up. And hopefully they address the potential issue, because people on potential just increase like crazy. And as someone doing MyGM, it's kind of tough not to abuse that, because on MyGM, it's all about development. But if you stunt yourself from developing players, it's like, where do you go from there? They haven't talked about that though, but hopefully that's on their agenda. But all in all, it's going to make it more difficult to make trades with this Team Intel. And they said this. It's not something I'm, you know, assuming or inferring. They said it's going to be more difficult of a game mode this year. Wow. Okay. I did some wish list videos with Nick Smith, and this is what we're talking about, man. We said it needs to be more difficult, some sort of difficulty slider or something to make it more fun to play the game mode. If you're developing 99 overall starting lineups every single time, it's not that fun. Level of difficulty is important. Now, they said they're going to make it a little bit easier for new players to understand, which makes sense, because a new player going in, like when I was new to MLB 15, I was just overwhelmed with, yo, I don't know anything about this. This is so different from the NBA. So hopefully for the new players coming into MyGM, they make it, and they had like an info screen where they kind of explained what bird rights are and stuff like that, but it wasn't really robust, and even I had some questions about some of the stuff they explained. So I can't imagine someone new to MyGM or new to basketball and the NBA in general having problems with that. So the difficulty is important, and I'm glad they upped it a little bit. Not a little bit, it looks like a lot of it, the way, you know, the change that I talked about earlier. GMs will tell you now exactly why they didn't like the trade. Looking at this graphic right now, it's kind of, the sharpen is really high, but you can see Brandon Harrison. I'm quoting here, you can read it as well. I love our current roster, and I think we're a championship contender. I won't mess with that unless we have a deal that's too good to pass up. This offer just isn't that. You're asking me to give away a valuable asset, which is LeBron James, when none of the assets I get back seem nearly as valuable. That's not happening. They break down why they didn't like the trade. So if you're trying to maybe propose them something different, now you can look at what they found wrong with it. In previous years, you were kind of stuck. You're like, okay, I don't know what they don't like back. Maybe they don't think there's enough value, but it makes sense for the owner for the GM, to tell you what they're looking for. And on top of that, if you offer them something, tell you what they didn't like about the trade and why they said no. That's awesome right there, and I'm so glad they did that. And it kind of talks about this touches maybe on the untouchable player list, because I'm sure LeBron's probably one of those people on that. You can't touch that guy. You might as well give him a no trade clause, because he's going nowhere. The next and the last thing about team building before we move on to the other stuff is teams value players differently. When I heard this, it just, on top of everything else, I was astounded. And the example they gave was Joe Johnson's expiring salary is going to be huge value to a team. They said it's going to be a 4-star. It could be a 4-star to a team that's looking to open up their cap space for next year, because if he's expiring, he's not going to be on your books next year, and all you have to do is pay him the money this year and you're good for next. But it doesn't make sense for Joe Johnson to go on the Cavs or the Warriors or a contending team, because they're not going to have the salary to pay him, and even if they did, it wouldn't make sense. He's not worth that output. So depending on what players you have, it's not going to be the same value for every single team, and that makes MyGM a whole ton more dynamic and more interesting. When you're on the trade block now, it's not that Sullinger is going to be 3-star across the board. It's Sullinger is going to be 3.5-star maybe for a team like the Cavs last year before they got Mozgov. If they're looking for a big man, then they're going to value it more. If not, then it's going to be maybe a 1-star. Maybe they already have a ton of big men. They don't need your guy. That's so huge, so important. I love that that's in the game. So team intel is my favorite thing they've added to MyGM. This is the thing you're going to be dealing with the most. It's the thing that really, it drives and structures how you build your team. And when they make it too easy to build your team, then the game mode loses its fun factor after a while. The next thing we're talking about is the ticker. On the MyGM wish list, I talked about how MyGM needs to, what's going on in the league? I'm not really sure. Now, I'm sure they had a screen for that, but no one ever used that screen. And even if you did, there was no value to ever using that screen. So now they have a new screen where it presents news from around the league. You see on the right side, there's again the social media. They got a whole new calendar set up. It looks really pretty, and the ticker, I just want to be informed when teams make trades. That's something I'm interested in, you know? I want to be informed when different things go down around the league that I feel like may impact the way I run my team. And that wasn't a thing last year, so I'm glad it is this year. Some of the examples they gave were real-time mock drafts. So based on how well your team is doing, they're going to be running mock drafts in that ticker, and maybe your team is going to be drafting this person who right now is ranked #1 of everyone in that draft class, and they run the mock draft. So you can kind of take a look at those and see what everyone else is thinking before, well, what the NBA writers are thinking specifically before, you know, you actually head up there in the draft. And the other example they gave was All-Star Weekend coverage. And they went into detail about how the ticker would talk about how maybe voting for the All-Star game, etc., and how that works. So that's interesting. It's not, you know, the biggest piece of news, but I'm glad they added that in the game. The next thing, and we talked about this in a previous video, was Simcast Live, and we were kind of skeptical about what it was. Maybe it was just a new name. What could they possibly improve about Simcast? But Simcast Live is separate from Simcast. There's two different things. Simcast Live, you kind of micromanage what happens in the game. You're kind of like the coach on a bird's eye view looking at the graphic right now. That's what Simcast Live is all about. You can go back to the old Simcast if you want to and you want to sim by the game quicker. But in Simcast Live, you can make coaching changes and you can make the necessary like substitutions, etc. And you can run your team from like a bird's eye view. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the game. I think it was NFL Head Coach 09 or 08. Where like the whole game was just you being a coach of an NFL team. The game failed utterly. And it kind of seems like NBA MyGM, within MyGM, they added this one thing that kind of emulates or more simulates what happened in that NFL game. Now, I never played it, but I'm assuming this is something what it looked like, but on a football field. And I'm going to try this out. It looks interesting, but I feel like, you know, when we're playing 80 plus games a year, because you never know if you make the playoffs, etc. I don't know if we want to do this all that much. Now, I feel like if you're facing an important team, you may feel like doing Simcast Live, but then again, if you're facing an important team, might as well jump in the game and play it yourself. Now, with Simcast Live, you can freely switch from Simcast Live to Simcast to jumping in the game, then jump back out to Simcast Live to Simcast, jump back in the game. So, all in one, you can be the GM by using Simcast, you can be the head coach by using Simcast Live, or you can be the actual players in the game by playing the game. So you can literally do everything. The detail is great here, and I love that it's like this, man. This is something important here, the ability to switch between the two, because if you were just stuck to one, it wouldn't be as interesting. And That's about it. Now, I was gonna make a whole new video for this, but these are the extras, and although extras may not seem as intriguing, some of these things are really important, so I figured if you made it this far in the video, I'm gonna tag it along just so you guys get literally all the important points of the article if you guys watched all 4 videos. If not, I made videos previous talking about, by the way, article in the description, I didn't even mention that if you guys want to read the whole thing, but it was really long. The first thing, we talked about this in the past, and they just wanted to reiterate, 3-team trades are back. Let's move forward. You can, and some of this stuff is really important as well, and I said that earlier, I'm kind of repetitive here. You can disable autosave. You can save when you feel like it now. So if you chose the wrong draft class, or maybe you fear that, you know, if in case I make a mistake, I want to have my own save, I don't like autosave. Autosave is an option now. That's incredible. Small things, big changes though. Multiple injuries. There used to be that if your player is injured on his ACL, he can't get injured on his shoulder. But that's not the case in real life. So your player can get injured in multiple areas, especially if you're playing him day to day and you know he's day to day and you're still playing him minutes. There's a possibility that might happen. That's another small thing they added in the game. There's more My League customization and sliders. When I heard this, I was like, really? What else could they possibly add? But check this out. This is really, really important. And at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about the most important thing they could have said about MyGM. Maybe not the most, but one of the most. But going back to sliders, the salary cap inflation rate, injury severity, player progression rate, salary cap value, injury duration are some of the few they mentioned, but I'm sure there's more that they added because they added the word etc. So we don't know how much more they added, but those are huge. Salary cap inflation rate, guys, there's a salary cap inflation rate. Oh my god, now you're the commissioners. Not only are you the owners, you're the commissioner and you're everything at this point. You have full customization. That's incredible because you know with the new CBA changes, we need something like this to be able to micromanage in My League. That's awesome. There's player locks. When you're in the game, you can lock to your superstar player, your point guard, your whatever. Wasn't in the game previously, at least not in My League and in MyGM. So now it's in there. That's what's up. You can save your My League sliders. And other people, if you upload them, can download your My League sliders. So if you don't like the sliders the game usually runs and you found a perfect set of sliders that work well, or maybe you're trying to do like a 2K mix and you're like, oh, let's get the dunking sliders up. I don't know if people do that. I'm sure some people do that. But there's different reasons to change different sliders. So you can go up there. If you want, make your own. If not, just download someone else's sliders. That's what's up. Small things that make a big difference. I like that. You can now download, I just mentioned that, I'm trying to repeat myself here. And one other thing, and this is something that was in MLB 15, is long-term owner goals. Past this year, what are we doing though? Past this year, what is a long-term goal? And I'm sure for most teams it's a championship, but I hope it's a little bit more dynamic than that because I don't want the goal to be the same for every single team. Maybe the goal can be something, because goals usually should be attainable. They should be a number, something that you can reach. You know, it could be a championship, it can be get us a superstar player, get us a player over 90 overall, maybe develop this young guy we just drafted, maybe develop him to like a specific overall, or maybe make him a superstar, or we're gonna build a team around this guy. So it's not you're playing MyGM and every single year is kind of like a different objective, although you're kind of chasing the championship. Is you have a long-term goal you're trying to reach now, and every year you're taking steps towards reaching that goal, whether it's a championship or not. That's interesting. Next thing is there's new stats. So there's lots of new players and stats you can add, and they already have a ton of these. Like they have a moving 3-point shot and a 3-point shot, and there's a ton of stats. And if you're into that kind of thing, that's amazing. But I'm not really. Yeah, it's not the biggest thing. And the main thing, and this I'm so glad they've done this because I was worried they may not have, is they've adjusted to the CBA changes in real life. So because players like Tristan Thompson are getting huge salaries and Robin Lopez, they're getting huge salaries that wouldn't make sense on the current salary cap. And that's why I was talking about in My League, the salary cap inflation rate. That's important. And hopefully they've adjusted on default, even in MyGM. And I think they have, because when the CBA goes up, I want to be able to, pay players accordingly. So if you're a big market team, that's great news for you. You got the money to do that. If not, you may cause, a couple stumbles or, road bumps across the road, some challenges for you it may pose. So I'm sure if you guys follow the NBA, you follow the off season, you know exactly why the CBA changes are important to replicate in MyGM, because there are some players in MyGM right now on the updated rosters that are getting paid way too damn much to have on your team because those changes weren't in NBA 2K15. Now, that's it. That's what the extras, and that's all they talked about and those were all the important points. If you watched all 4 all the way through, that's what's up. Thank you, and I appreciate that, man. Let me know what, out of all things, I'm most excited about team building. And I keep asking this question at the end because it's an important question, you know? What are you most excited about? Because when you jump in the game, what is that thing you're looking forward to the most? Let me know in the comments. Mine is team building by far. It's like this is the bread and butter of MyGM. So when we go into MyGM, this is the thing we notice the most, more than any aesthetic presentation or smaller changes. That's what's up.